Hello and welcome to this episode of Tropology. It's a backpacking show all about backpacking, traveling, zooming about the earth. I'm Alun and I'm here with one of the greatest, most experienced travelers of all time. It's the ever preparatory Adam.
Thanks ever so much for joining us for another week, guys. We really do appreciate it. Awesome show on the cards today, mate. We're going to talk about what you've been doing in preparation for your big trip traveling east. And then we're going to go through some objectives that I've got for 2026. What on earth is in store for us? And then, of course, at the end of the show, stay tuned for Tales of a Trip, where we hear a story from one of you guys.
I finally did it, Adam. There's been a place since the dawn of time that I've always thought about going but never gone to. And it's a place that you are very, very familiar with. A place that you've often sojourned to. And, I've been a little bit jealous, envious. The green-eyed monster has sunk its proverbial teeth deep into my travel feet. And I've just, I've decided to embark to where you know so well. I'm, of course, speaking of East Asia, specifically Japan, specifically Korea, and not in that order, my friend, because I had to just do it. I've been here. I've been very, very comfortable in my family home. I've been having a lovely, lovely Christmas and New Year. But there always comes a time where you go, listen, I'm going to have to just book this flight. I'm going to have to load up Skyscanner, my favorite travel flight aggregation service, not a sponsor, and see what's available and just do it. Just click around, book a flight. I'm going to Korea next week.
So you have an amazing time with your family, but you said to them, guys, I've really enjoyed this, but it's just not Asian enough. Mate, I've got to be honest with you. There is some reverse jealousy going on, some reverse envy, because
that's right.
You've been patient, you've bided your time. And now that you've got a working holiday visa for Japan, it's like the one that I really wanted. I might even go as far to say, would I trade a couple of my working holiday visas that I've already worked, wiped from my memory, just for that sweet, sweet Japanese work visa? There'd be some consideration. I think you're going to have an amazing time, and I'm going to definitely use it as an opportunity to come and see you, like a best friend should.
Exactly. I've triggered the old reverse jealousy, as was always my intention. We, of course, did an episode about a year ago about me getting that working holiday visa and the process that was. Adam will link that in the description, so anyone wants to hear how I got the working holiday visa can. I, of course, chose Japan for my working holiday visa, which bound me to start in Korea and then take a cheap flight to Japan before the commencement date of that visa. So Korea is going to be the first adventure. In the very next episode of Tropology that comes out after this one, I will be in Korea and I'll be telling you all about my first steps in that wonderful country. Are you good at booking flights, mate? Because I pride myself on being able to get ever such a cheap deal when it comes to the old flightkin.
I do spend a long time booking flights, actually. Platforms like Skyscanner, etc. They're kind of aggregators, and you can choose different routes and do like multi-city options to try and get cheaper prices. You go through, hubs. There are lots of hubs throughout Europe. Sometimes you go through Frankfurt, Istanbul, whatever to get over east. They can be a little bit cheaper. Middle East, of course. So I would say I am pretty good at booking flights if what you mean is getting a good deal. But that isn't always, I'm not always trying to find the cheapest price. I sometimes try and find the most interesting route.
Yeah, it's a good idea sometimes. If you've got like a lovely layover somewhere you've not been, you think, oh, that's enough time. I am just trying to choose the cheapest price because I don't have much money. But so
that is a totally fine reason to be trying to book a cheap flight.
Skyscanner, of course, is my aggregator of choice. I very, very rarely find a cheaper price on other platforms than I do on Skyscanner. I always use a VPN, which, protect my private network, and I just go so anonymous in private browsing, VPN on. I load up Skyscanner like a little secret agent. And one little tip I'd give for anyone searching for flights is be entirely flexible about when you're intending to leave, because sometimes prices can fluctuate by literally hundreds of pounds just a couple of days apart. So I always choose the perfect little day with the cheapest price. You can search by the whole month. I looked at the whole of January and found a very, very beautiful beautiful little flight to Korea, to Seoul, just at the end of January. Can you guess how much I paid for a trip to Seoul?
It's funny you talking about Skyscanner so openly, and then when it came to the VPN chat, you didn't mention the VPN you use. People are going to be listening to this thinking, oh, he said they're not a sponsor, but maybe he's getting a backhander. I tell you, one company who's not paying, it'll be the VPN company. They didn't get a mention. There's no money changing hands there. They're not a sponsor.
Yeah, if you have a VPN company and you wish that I used you whilst on Skyscanner, get in touch. So a business email, tripologypodcast@gmail.com, yeah?
Nice one. What do I think you paid? What would be a reasonable price? I'm a bit out of touch, actually, with prices for flights to Asia. So I'm going to say the 250 quid is ringing around in my head for some reason, but I don't know if that's...
Ooh, save 50 quid versus you, mate. Only £200, and it'll fly to my favourite layover city, Shanghai. But this time, only 5 hours. Not enough time. I shan't be bullied into leaving the airport this time, my friends. I'm going to stay put in Shanghai airport 5 hours and then off straight to Seoul. So I arrive, just less than 24 hours prior to me setting off.
Okay.
I mean, after I set off, actually. I'm not going to go back in time.
Blimey, that is a good deal. Are you... have you got any knowledge of Korea, Seoul itself? Have you got like a rough plan, an itinerary? You did mention another flight to Japan. Have you already booked that out of the country?
Oh, let me deal with your questions in order, Adam. So firstly...
It's like Justin's email a couple of weeks ago.
Mate, I have no plans or intentions in Seoul, Korea. I've booked that flight as a completely discovery-based exploration route. I'm going to rely on you very much to give me tips and tricks. I don't know any Korean. I know very little about Korea, and I'm just going in order to have my eyes opened to that beautiful part of the world. I don't know exactly when I'm going to go to Japan, although I do know it has to be before April 17th. And as such, I've checked flights from Seoul to Tokyo, and I know that those are around $50. So I'm going to book that sometime in the near future.
Okay.
But I'm very, very excited to discover Korea. I really am looking forward to it. I've heard naught but good things.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Where is Dan, our friend and YouTuber, he loves Korea so much so that he basically
lived there.
Bases a lot of his personality around it.
No, you're totally right. I could tell you everything I know about Korea. I'd probably save that for another episode, maybe write you up some sort of Word document. But just to let me drop a little idea in so that it's, just plant a little seed so that it's somewhere in there, mate. If you were to zigzag across South Korea, as you like to do, traveling overland, maybe even go to Jeju, that's an island off the south, and then back over, you can get a ferry, as I did, from Busan, which is down in the southeast, over to Fukuoka, which is then mainland Japan. So if you don't want to fly and you want it to make sense, you can just zigzag down from Seoul over a couple of weeks and then go overland on a boat. I mean, not overland on a boat, but you don't come off, you know what I mean, go up in a plane to Fukuoka, and then you can get a Shinkansen wherever you want to go, basically. So,
well, that sounds like a very sensible and smart plan, and it's reasons like that, which is why I do a travel podcast with you, mate. I've got up to sort of 2.5 months in Korea, potentially. So there's plenty of time, isn't it?
That's more than enough time. I was there for 3.5 weeks and I managed to do a lot of things, but it is going to be bloody cold, mate. I mean, South Korea gets colder than I think most people realise. So I don't know how much you're going to be able to do outside, but go hungry.
Well, it's actually the same temperature there right now as it is where I am in Scotland now.
And you're inside. So
it's going to be perfect, seamless. I'm not even going to notice the difference, a lot of people say. I'm going to go on some side quests when I'm in Korea. I'm going to try and start a K-pop band. I'm going to try and open a Korean barbecue restaurant. And I'm just going to try and make peace, really, whilst I'm over there.
Maybe a skincare product?
Yeah.
If you wanted something else that they're known for?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And I'm going to try and start a skincare brand whilst I'm over there as well.
If you're going to be there for about 2 months, am I going to be able to come over and see you in Korea? Because I didn't manage to see Jeju, but I would love to. It's wicked, but you'll love it, mate. What sort of aspect of Korea are you most excited about? Don't say the North, then we'll get cancelled.
No, I'm most excited about your reaction to me being there, because I feel like a little bit over the last few years you've sort of lorded it over me that there's this part of the world that you've explored that I haven't. I, of course, have traveled a lot more rapidly than you over the course of my life. We've traveled for the same length of time, but you've been to fewer places more in depth, and I've always felt like it was a little sword that you often brandished in my face, the fact that you've been and spent time in Korea and Japan. So I'm looking forward to sort of disarming you like a matador, like a Zorro, like a troubadour, getting that blade out of your hand and maybe discovering it in more detail than you ever have, and telling you some facts about Korea. I'm really motivated by envy and revenge.
Yeah, to be completely transparent, I mean, a lot of people wouldn't necessarily know this, or if they'd just heard a couple of episodes, or maybe we'd ask you why have you only heard a couple of episodes, maybe you're new to the show. Go back and listen to the whole thing from the beginning. But I've travelled for probably only, like you said, the same length of time, but maybe only visited half as many countries as you.
Yeah, something like that. So I just feel like there's an imbalance in the east of Asia, and I need to address it. I need to deeply. I'm joking, of course. I'm not that competitive. I've always wanted to go there. I think Japan and Korea are two of the most major, thought of, recognized universally, the two countries that I've not been to, that people are surprised that I've not been to. And I've always wanted to go there. Japan, of course, huge part of my childhood: video games, music, anime, like Studio Ghibli films. I've always really wanted to go there, and I just can't wait.
Yeah, can I, at the risk of probably putting my foot in it and saying something inadvertently racist or offensive, but you have to give me a hand to articulate this. Japan and South Korea are countries that are culturally and also aesthetically so wildly different from anything that we know in the West, but they are still absolutely as developed and powerful, technologically advanced, in terms of their economy and all that sort of stuff. So it's very rare to be able to experience that in this day and age. They're really probably only the two places on Earth, as well as some parts of India perhaps, that culturally are so different from what we know, but actually in some ways feel very similar.
In what ways do you think they feel similar?
So I'll give you a little anecdote of me walking around Kyoto a couple of years ago. I looked at this scene, and I just explore on foot for hours and hours and hours, sometimes doing 25, 30 kilometers in a day. And I remember sitting down on a bench in the outskirts of Kyoto, and I looked at the scene in front of me, which was a man walking down the road with his briefcase, past a row of shops, some cars driving past. There was an office block over to the left. There was a bit of a graffiti on the wall. And it just looked so familiar. It just looked exactly like the sort of scene you would see back in London or in England somewhere. Mm. But if someone had just put a Japanese filter over it.
Yeah, right.
And it felt a little bit like I was in some sort of virtual reality Japanese simulation or something, which sounds ridiculous to say, but you will feel almost at home because of how familiar some areas of South Korea and Japan feel, but it will be so wildly different because you're obviously about as far east as you can go.
I had that experience in India once when I was with my then partner watching a band play live, and it's a band called Indian Ocean, and it's like popular Indian music, and we were in a crowd of Indian people watching this Indian band in an Indian mall in Mumbai, and I had this realization, although it's an obvious thing that I probably should have considered prior. It was like, this is a country that has its own popular culture that isn't borrowing from the West, that it has its own fashion and its own music and its own cinema and its own movies and its own stars. And I think a lot of cultures evolve and build themselves up to borrow all those things. It's like, okay, we have our local culture, but we watch Hollywood. We have our local culture, but we listen to popular music. We put Taylor Swift on the radio, But in India, that's not the case. They have their own culture and have megalithic popular icons from that culture that completely they've evolved completely separately from the West. And I think Japan is similar to that, and Korea is similar to that, and now we're seeing this phenomena where the West's actually borrowing the cultural icons from them. So it's really, really interesting, and I'm very, very excited to just go and get involved.
Yeah. I look forward to talking to you about it, and I'm sure we all look forward to hearing about it on the show, because what I say to people when they ask me for my recs on Japan, I sort of say, I bet it's almost exactly as you imagine it.
Yeah.
You will, because we've been so heavily exposed to Japanese aesthetics, signage, fashion, all of the manga and the anime and all this sort of stuff. We already have an idea, an image in our head. We can visualize exactly what it might like through popular culture and movies. You will get there and go, yeah, it's exactly as I imagined it. And it's so magical. It's amazing. You're going to love it, man. I'm so excited for you.
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to sharing it all with you all. It's going to be a real blast. So Korea on next week's Tripology. Do you have any flight rituals when you're getting ready to go on a big adventure? Do you have any things that you like to do in preparation? Are you a last minute packer, or do you get real stuck in the weeks prior?
Last minute packer. I mean, definitely the same day. Usually just a couple of hours beforehand. And because, I'm just looking at my bag on the floor now during the recording, it's just a 35-litre carry-on. So I think when you pack a bag so many times and for so long, it's just completely, you just go into autopilot, don't you? I just think, I know it roughly takes me 15 minutes to pack my bag. So as long as I've got the big five, the passport, the ticket, I'm going to have to name the five now. I just said big five because it sounded good, but you know what I mean. Wallet, phone, passport, bag.
Wallet, phone, passport, money, and yourself.
If anything goes wrong, you're fine. But no, I don't really have anything in the way of a ritual. Do you mean kind of almost like OCD, superstitious type things, or?
No, well, I mean, historically, I've been the same as you. I mean, when I was heading to Brazil last time we physically saw each other, you saw me pack my bag just in the moments before getting on a train. And that's historically been my mode. But this is such a colossal trip, because when I go to Japan, I'm actually not allowed to exit Japan. I lose my visa if I do. It's a single entry working holiday visa. So I know that this is the last time I'll step foot in the UK or in sort of anything that can be described loosely as home for a good long while. And as such, I've been so disconcertingly prepared this time around. It's a week out from my flight at the moment, and already I've gone through all my main bags, my backpack, my fanny pack in meticulous detail. I've
bum bag for our English listeners.
Yeah, my fanny pack, my bum bag. I've gone through those, and with help from my mum, stitched and mended and darned any little areas, any rips, any little bits and pieces like that. I went and thoroughly washed my rucksack, submerged it, scrubbed it, hung it up in the shower to drip dry.
Good old Lucky.
I've got everything all clean and laid out. And that for me was it was a beautiful pre-flight ritual. I felt like I was preparing an old battle-hardened warrior in my bag for yet another journey. I saw him there dripping in the shower, a bag that has been with me to 6 of 7 continents, many countries. I think we're approaching 70 countries, me and him together now. And I was it filled me with pride. And I thought, I'm going to do that every time I go on a trip now, give him a wash.
It's so funny you're describing the process. Sounds very methodical. There's care taken, there's attention to detail. Sounds very Japanese, actually, if I might say.
Yeah. Well, things are about to get a bit more Japanese in my life, I think, mate. I'm going to start doing things like that.
Now that you've done 2 preparations, are you now on team sort of preparation, or are you on the old team? You got an idea of both now. Do you think it's better to be doing it the new way, the newfound preparation way, or do you prefer the old slapdash, chuck everything in a bag and run out the door?
Well, there's a moment where you have to start making moves and book a flight and stuff. And I think emotionally that can put you in two spaces. This time around, for me, booking the flight was an emotionally disconcerting experience.
Oh,
Sometimes I'm really excited and I'm like, oh, this is locked in now. But I've had such a good time here with my family. Honestly, when I went on Skyscanner with a VPN in private browsing, found the cheapest price, cheaper than anyone else can get, got it, bought the flight, I felt a little bit emotional, like, oh, now that's locked in and I have to go and I'm not going to see my family again for a long time. I felt a little bit sad about it. And doing that ritual, giving my bag Lucky a wash, repairing it, made me excited. It served the function for me of like being like, okay, now I'm getting ready. I'm sort of building towards it. Do you know what? This is like, yeah, he's ready for this trip and we're going to go. It made me feel really ready. So in that sense, I think it was good to do. It was good to do that bit of preparation to anticipate the journey that I'm about to take. And I imagine that I will still, the night before, get everything into Lucky and be like, okay, now we're ready to go. And I'll still have that last minute rush of adrenaline. But I do feel more relaxed, the fact that everything's kind of sorted a week out.
yeah, I bet. It sounds good, mate. Do you know what? Live on air, I've just learned that your visa's single entry.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were watching the video at the same time, but my mouth popped open because that's a little bit shocking. If you do forget anything, you know that I'm only down the road, so I can always pop up. But that's surprising. That really is. I wonder why that is. That's a bit of a restriction.
You can apply for a special exit, but you have to apply for it. You can be like, oh, I've had a family emergency. Can I come back and be on the working visa again? And they can choose to approve that. But technically, the visa is single entry.
Okay. So, I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't leave early, but you're looking down the barrel of 14 and a half, 15 months away from the family now.
Yeah, but like I said on a previous episode, I'm not viewing Japan as an endurance challenge. I will leave if I don't like it, but I'm sure I will love it. And I think maybe it's time for my family to come visit me in Japan. They've never visited me whilst I'm on the road. So they've never really seen me in my natural habitat since I was 21 years old at university. So it's going to be good for them to come, I think, and see me out there in Japan making stuff happen.
Are they interested in Japan as a country as well? Because, please let this be a message to any parents who listen to the show and have a child who does travel or children who travels, or even anyone who's listening to the show who has friends in interesting parts of the world. Please go and see them because, I've only ever had my dad and my sister come out to visit me once in the last 11 years, and they both came in the same week when I was living in Canada. So I've always thought to myself, if I had friends, which, now I have, got friends in really cool places all over the world, people that I've met through traveling or, I've worked in different countries, they often say, oh, if you're ever in Southeast Asia, you've always got a room at our place. Be careful because I will take you up on it.
Well, there you go. And more to that point, here is an open invitation to anyone listening to the podcast who knows me personally, even peripherally. You are invited. Come stay with me in Japan. I think we're a big travel community and I'd love for everyone to come.
Oh my
But that's
God.
it this week for my personal stories and tales of me setting off and zooming off on an adventure, because I would really love to hear a story from one of our beautiful listeners. If you go to tripologypodcast.com, there's a little contact bit where you can go to Tales of a Trip and record 3 minutes of your greatest travel story. You can tell us about the time that you found yourself macheting through the Amazon jungle, or the time that you lost your wallet on a bus in, somewhere less interesting. Those are the options you have. Send us a 3-minute story, Tales of a Trip, tripologypodcast.com. Let's hear what one of you had to say right now.
Hi, my name is Remy, and I would like to tell you a little bit about my experiences about living and traveling abroad. So, I've lived and worked in many countries across the world, such as Vietnam, Romania, Mauritius, Ivory Coast, and right now I'm completing a 12-month trip through New Zealand. And all these places I've been to have something in common, as I've been over there in each of those places on my own. And it's actually a very great way to discover those countries if you really would like to get like you become a part of the society. I've got a great example with Romania, which is an amazing country in Europe that most people don't know anything about. We usually have bad opinions about the population that we actually don't know anything about, because we think about gypsies and we confuse them with Romanians. Romanians actually are Latin people, and they live in an amazing country with the sea, the mountain, a lot of culture, a lot of history over there. And it's amazing to see it's actually in the middle of Europe, and we still don't know much about them, and we don't know about the culture, we don't know about the economy, we don't know that they're growing and expanding all across Europe now with young people with a lot of degrees and the ability to speak many languages, 4 to 5 languages per person, which really is astonishing. I've been there for 6 months living and working over there. So it's really an amazing way to discover the place. And I think traveling alone is actually the greatest way to open yourself to the whole world. You have to. I mean, you can't spend your own time on your own all the time. You have to open up to other people. And this actually helps out to reach locals, to get into contact with all the amazing people traveling. But after so many years traveling and living abroad, I can see now something a bit kind of dangerous about this way of life, which is that you can easily meet some people who are just reproducing their own way of life in another country. They're just doing the touristic stuff and then trying to get their life back the way it was in another place, which obviously ends up um, bringing some conflict to the locals and changing their lifestyle. But this is not our country, this is theirs.
Remy there with a very, very interesting and pertinent tale of a trip. I think it was lovely to hear. Thank you so much for sending that in. Our listeners have a knack. I mean, I promise me and Adam don't listen to these messages prior. The first time we hear them is the first time you hear them. And very, very pertinent. They're talking about working holiday visas like the one I'm going to go and do in Japan. We'll touch on what he finished with there, because I think that was a really salient point. The idea that people go to a new place and try and recreate their domestic lives like they had back in their home countries there, whilst benefiting from some of the advantages that a different country might have. What are your thoughts on that, Adam?
Yeah, it's obviously a sensitive subject. Difficult not to say anything too negative or even borderline offensive. I would like to think that I try and assimilate wherever I go, but obviously there's only a certain amount of assimilation you can do. I suppose a lot of it comes down to respecting another culture, learning as much as you can about the environment you're in. But I do agree with what Remy said. There can absolutely be a lot of problems that develop if you just try and live your own life wherever it is you're from, and have sort of negative impacts or even conflict in some cases with people in the local environment. It's a shame it happens. Sometimes it might be completely innocent. You might not necessarily know. But I guess it comes down to sort of cherry picking, doesn't it? You move to a different country to start a new life or to make a positive change. And the fact of the matter is you can't cherry pick. You can't just choose the positive parts and then completely forget the negative ones. When you move to a country, you almost have to take all of it at the same time, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much fruitful conversation to be had here, because when you're traveling to a place, and we talk all the time about a place's experience of you, but there's so many different cultures at play. There's like the local culture of the place that you're traveling to.
Mm-hmm.
There's the culture of where you came from that you're obviously bringing in some sense to a place. And then there's backpacker culture, which is something else besides. And then, there's all these emergent cultures that are coming up now, like digital nomad culture, which is slightly different, but an offshoot of backpacker culture. And then, somewhere like Australia, where you can go on a working holiday visa and very much ensconce yourself in backpacker culture. There's all these people doing farm work and staying in hostels. And that's kind of like a very accepted part of a working holiday visa in Australia versus going on a working holiday visa in Japan, where maybe there's less of that culture, but a lot of people on working holiday visas end up like teaching English language, but maybe it's harder to make Japanese friends, but so you kind of have to learn a bit of the language if you want to do that. There's a lot of competing ideas. I think this idea of people moving to a place and building their own culture there is really, most clear when it comes to like digital nomads in a place like Thailand. Digital nomad culture is unique because we call them digital nomads, but of course most of them aren't. They're just doing a remote job in a different country and benefiting from like a better exchange rate and earning foreign currency and then living more comfortably.
Maybe tax evasion.
Yeah, right. Living more comfortably in a different place than they would if they had the same job living at home. And, are there issues with that? Yeah, sure. But, I think there's so much conversation to be had around that.
Yeah, I think two things. You'll probably experience this in some way, shape or form when you move to Japan, actually, because you're someone from the West and you're, either a backpacker or even a content creator, you might be tarred with the same brush as lots of other tourists in Japan. Kyoto, absolutely famous for it. A lot of the locals hate how busy it is. You might even hate how busy it is as a tourist, just to give you some idea. But because I follow a lot of content creators in Japan who are not Japanese, I know that there is a kind of an atmosphere and noise around them at the moment, and it's not necessarily positive. Japan is such a content creator's playground that it's obviously attracted because it's very aesthetic and there's lots of weird and wonderful things to see in Japan. So it'll be interesting to get your thoughts, and we'll have to sort of, retrospectively, we'll look back at this sort of question and see whether you've kind of felt that. The other thing as well is because of our exposure through things like popular culture, media, films, this kind of stuff, news, of course, we tend to build up in our head, maybe not even really realizing it, but we have an opinion of a people or a culture or a nationality before we've even met someone from said country or been there ourselves. And I think that is incredibly dangerous, because Remy did mention that with Romanian people.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily, you don't meet that many Romanian people. Funnily enough, the last Romanian person I met was in Seoul, Korea. And she was an absolutely wonderful, wonderful woman, really intelligent, really inspiring. We went for coffee together and ended up spending 6 hours walking around Gangnam. But speaks multiple languages, just like Remy said. And I guess my example of that from firsthand experience is when people, it's sad to say it on air, but people listening to this will understand. Some people say negative things about Russians. And it's because of what's going on in the news, in the media, and has been for a while. And whenever someone says something like that to me, I say, well, have you ever been to Russia? No, I haven't been. Have you ever met any Russians? No. I mean, does that not seem a little bit unfounded then?
A lot of our perceptions of all cultures are just based on what we're told about the political movements of that country on our version of the news. And that's like a really crazy, dangerous way to go around with that kind of information, isn't it?
When you say it like that, yeah, it sounds pretty ridiculous, to be honest. So I'm always very careful.
Yeah, and I think rightfully so. I am noticing more and more people when talking about travel as a long-term lifestyle concept, challenging of that and go, oh God, is that maybe ethical? Like you're basically inserting yourself into a different culture. Like how do you go about assimilating? How do you go about doing all that things? And I think it is an ongoing debate. I think as more people are traveling, it is becoming more and more controversial. More and more countries are saying, hey, are all these tourists sustainable? Are they good for our culture? Are they good for these places? And I think that travelers have a responsibility to be mindful of that when they visit a place. I know, we have such a strong culture as backpackers of wanting the world to be free, of wanting to go and experience as many different places, living life to the fullest. But as more and more people do it, more and more people do it badly, as well as more and more people doing it well. And I think that we have challenges as a community to make sure that travel can be sustainable and we have a positive relationship with the places that we visit. A lot of places are attracted by the money they can make from travelers, but don't have the infrastructure set up to sort of protect what they already have and the natural beauty of the places that are attracting these tourists. And I think that it's going to be a conversation that needs to continue. I don't have all the solutions, but I do know that, like Remy, I'm trying to be mindful of it. And I encourage all the listeners to do the same. I think that mindfulness and intention are the two biggest weapons we have right now in order to make sure that we behave responsibly in the future. And with that, I think we'll have to end this week's episode and head over to the Patreon section where we'll have some more little funny anecdotes and discussions, Adam. So if people want to head there to the Lost and Found section, there's a link in the description to our Patreon.
Thanks ever so much for sending the voice note in, Remy. It was wonderful to hear from you. And if you want to send one in, there's a link in the description as well. We look forward to it. Thanks ever so much for tuning in, guys. We hope to see you next week.
Bye.
See you there. Bye.